Classification of Armen Takhtajan, 1910. Armen Takhtajan, who is the head of the Department of Higher Plants at the Komarov Botanical Institute in Leningrad, Russia, presented a system of classification, which was first published in a very preliminary form in 1942. The actual system, however, appeared in 1959 in German in his book Die Evolution der Angiosperm. After 1966, this system has gone through a series of modifications and elaborations, but the nucleus of the system and the basic features remained essentially the same. It was published in English in 1969 in Flowering Plants, Origin and Dispersal. A new version of the system has been published in Botanical Review recently in 1980. Takhtajan was inspired by Halley's attempt to create a synthetic evolutionary classification of flowering plants based on Darwinian philosophy, and his approach is very much similar to that of Cronquist. Armen Takhtajan's system of classification. Takhtajan's system of classification is basically a busy Halley tradition which considered all evidences from different fields including morphological, anatomical, embryological, cytological, palynological, paleobotanical, chemical and ultrastructural evidences while classifying angiosperms. He considered angiosperms to be monophyletic in origin and that they arose from some ancient group of gymnosperms. The monocotyledons are considered to have been derived from primitive dicotyledons. Takhtajan divided the magnoliophyta angiosperms into two classes: magnoliopsida dicotyledons and liliopsida monocotyledons, of which magnoliopsida is considered primitive and liliopsida to have been derived from magnolias under magnoliopsida. The two classes have been further divided into 10 subclasses, 7 under the magnoliopsida and 3 under liliopsida, 1980, which are as follows. However, according to Takhtajan's system of classification, 1997, the two classes have been divided into 15 subclasses, 11 under the magnoliopsida and 5 under liliopsida, which are as follows. Among the subclasses, Takhtajan considered Magnoliidae to be the most primitive, forming the basal group from which all other subclasses have been derived. Among the Magnoliopsida, he considered the Asteridae the most advanced. The three subclasses under Liliopsida, Alismatidae, Liliidae and Arecidae, are considered to be primitive than the other subclasses of Magnoliopsida, and have been derived from Magnoliidae. Among the angiosperms, the Winteraceae family is most primitive and Passeae the most advanced. Takhtajan's system is based on 67 phyletic principles. Some of the important criteria used by him to evaluate the relative degree of advancement of flowering plants are as follows. 1. Woody plants are primitive than herbaceous plants. 2. Deciduous woody plants are considered evolved from evergreen plants. 3. Xylem fibers evolved from trichades to libriform fibers, through fiber trichades. 4. Trilacunar or pentalacunar nodes are primitive to unilacunar nodes. 5. Alternate leaf arrangement is primitive while parallel venation is most advanced. Chair. Stomata with subsidiary cells are primitive than those lacking subsidiary cells. 7. Cymose inflorescence is primitive than racemose. 8. Flowers with an indefinite or variable number of floral parts are primitive. 9. Pollen with unsculptured exene is primitive to sculptured pollen. 10. Apocarpus gynoecium is primitive. 11. Bitemic ovules are primitive than anatemic ovules, while anatropous ovule is most primitive. 12. 8 nucleated polygonum type female gametophyte is most primitive. Thera. Mesogamic and chalezogamic conditions have evolved from porogamic condition. 14. Among fruits, many seeded follicle is most primitive. Merits of Takhtajan's system of classification. Takhtajan's system was not much cared of when it first appeared in 1959. However, ever since its publication in the revised form in English in 1969, it has attracted the attention of the entire world and is considered one of the most satisfactory phylogenetic system, which is followed in many parts of the world. This system is largely accepted mainly due to its clearly defined evolution principles and has the following plus points to its credit. Sad face A. The dicots Magnoliopsida has been discussed prior to monocots Liliopsida. B. The families are small homogeneous units made up of closely related genera. C. The dicots begin with magnolials, which is highly satisfactory as magnolials are universally considered to be the most primitive living angiosperms. D. Among monocots, the alismatals, which are considered to be the most primitive living monocots, have been placed at the starting point, which is satisfactory. A. Engler and Pruntel's division of dicots into two traditional groups Archichlamidae and Metachlamidae has been abolished in this system. F. Problems such as monophyly or polyphyly, interrelationships of dicots and monocots, primitive position of magnolials, the secondary nature of anemophilous families with reduced unisexual flowers, etc. have been satisfactorily settled.